Carson, sound check 1. 1, 2, 3. Carson, sound check 1.
DJ, I hear you just fine. Can you hear us okay? DJ, sound check from Las Vegas. 1, 2, 3, 4. Do you hear us?
10-4. We hear you. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay, you can now. We're good. Go ahead.
No, let's try this again.
It showed you.
Check 1, 2, check 1, 2. So Teams, I am muted, but there's no live. There's no microphone.
Drinking cover? Okay, good morning. I'd like to call to order today's meeting in the Nevada Department of Transportation Board of Directors for Monday, August 8, 2022. Could I ask the clerk to take the record? The roll call, please.
Governor Steve Sisolak.
Here.
Lieutenant Governor Lisa Cano Burkhead.
Here.
Controller Catherine Burr.
Here.
Member Virginia Valentine. Member Stephen Esquava.
Here.
Member Justin Kalb. Here. Member Gary Correa.
Here.
Governor Young.
Thank you very much. I'll move on to item number 2, public comment. This is the first time set aside for public comment. Anyone wishing to address the board on any item on today's agenda, items that are on the agenda, please step forward and identify yourself for the record, and comments will be limited to 3 minutes. Do we have any public comment in Las Vegas? Okay, do we have any public comment in Carson City?
No, Governor.
Do we have any written or telephonic public comment?
We do not.
Okay, we'll close public comment and move on to item number 3, director's report.
Morning, members of the board. As my report gets pulled up, I will get started. All right, first up, as I always do, traffic safety. We've not yet received the state's fatality report as we prepared for today's meeting, so I'm going to talk about one of our top contributors to traffic fatalities that we've been talking about for years now, impaired driving. As you know, traffic crashes are a significant public health risk, and there are nationally 35 to 38,000 traffic fatalities annually, including vehicle occupants, pedestrian, bicyclists, motorcyclists, as well as scooter, moped, and ATV riders. And so with all of us sharing our roadways, we need to stay informed and aware of our surroundings and also the contributing factors. The next slide shows a chart that depicts what we know from the data collected since 2016. And I should highlight, you can't manage what you don't measure. And so we're measuring and we're learning on this. And so that's why I'm sharing the information. This shows data from 2016. It shows that impairing substances are present in roughly 55% of all fatal crashes in Nevada. And it measures an operator. An operator is in control of their own movements. And I should note that that means they're really looking at drivers, pedestrians, bicyclists, impairment of any of those. Because of course impairment impacts the decisions of all of us. As you can see, there was a slight dip in 2018, but fatal crashes involving impaired persons has increased over this time period and accelerated since the pandemic began. In 2020, we had 333 fatalities involving impaired drivers, and in 2021, we had 384, an increase in 1 year of over 19%. So if we start looking at the substances involved in these impairments, I'm gonna go briefly over what you're seeing on the chart, because that's a bit of an eye chart with all kinds of different colors. I'm gonna go just in the far year on the left in 2016, so they're all in groupings. So the farthest left color, that blue, is crashes where the operator had a blood alcohol content of 0.08 or more above and no other impairing substances. The light orange to the right of that is marijuana only. So the first on the left is alcohol only, second is marijuana only. The dark blue in the middle, other drug, represents other non-marijuana drugs, and just one drug. Polysubstance, the dark orange, next to the middle there, that's one of the tallest across all of them almost, is any combination of drugs and alcohol excluding marijuana, and the one on the farthest right in the teal is polysubstance including marijuana, so it's marijuana and something. So the reported numbers show occurrences involving prohibited substances, or impairing substances, I should say, because they're not all prohibited, but impairing substances generally increased in the last 6 years. When looking at just 2020 and 2021, the substance with the highest increase was alcohol. Second was other drug, increase of 23%. Polysubstance at almost 12, followed by any marijuana at over 10. But marijuana by itself increased the least. So one of the things that we're looking at is, while marijuana has by itself has been pretty steady, the increase in any marijuana is suggesting that more people are mixing the use of marijuana with other substances, and we're seeing that impact on our roads. Although there may be some substances that are on the rise in substance-involved incidents, impairment recognition includes recognition of a broad spectrum of impairment. So these increases show we need to be vigilant and continue working with our partners to help the battle against impaired driving. And I want to thank Governor for proposing raises for the NSP officers that will help with recruitment and retention. I often talk in these meetings about our role as engineering on the network. And in this case, this is really a role of education and enforcement. And so the more we can enforce and the more we can educate about the impact, the better we're going to be in this space. So just wanted to talk a little bit about this because I think there's a lot of misinformation on that, or not a lack of understanding of what's going on. So, all right. I did want to talk a little bit about one of the programs from the bipartisan infrastructure law. So last week, the Biden administration announced the Promoting Resilient Operations for Transformative, Efficient, and Cost-Saving Transportation Formula Program, or PROTECT for short. So it's focused on resiliency, PROTECT. It will be providing $65 million over the course of the 5-year bill to Nevada, and it's going to be working to help communities and first responders prepare for natural disasters and extreme weather intensified by climate change like wildfires, flooding, and extreme heat. And so while the program was only announced last week, I'm actually proud to say that at NDOT we've already started working on a resilience program. Actually, in the last couple of years, we started our a resilience study to really look towards where are our most vulnerable assets and what do we need to do to make sure to prioritize the investment in those assets. Many of you may recall in 2017 when we lost the I-15 bridge over the Virgin River. We don't want that to happen again, so we want to make sure that we're providing proper resources to our infrastructure. One of the things that we found while we were working on this, though, is that the Nevada statewide floodplain data, which isn't part of our space, was lacking the full information that we needed to map out our resilience plan. And so a parallel project that we're not funding actually was stood up, and it's going to be completed to help bridge that data gap and provide that useful floodplain data for the use of the state broadly. So we're excited about that, and we'll be able to use it. And then once we have that, we will have a prioritized list of the critical system and assets and vulnerabilities within our system so we can prioritize and be better prepared to apply for grant programming, which will be on top of that $65 million. So we're really working to make sure that we're investing in our system and making sure that it can survive the weather that we've had and the fires that we've had, because we know that that's just going to continue to increase moving forward. All right, couple project updates. 515 VIADUCT. We are on pace, as I said last month, for substantial completion. It says here by Labor Day, for sure before our next board meeting. So we're very excited. It is months ahead of schedule, and we know that it's impacted travel times for Southern Nevada, so we thank everyone for their patience. Crews took down, during the time of this project, we took down and rebuilt the bridges over Eastern and Desert Inn, both of which were structurally deficient bridges, so we're replacing those. Will help our bridge rating, already best in the nation. Those will just help. And we also rehabilitated the elevated freeway structures, some of which are already 50 to 60 years old, to make them safe in the event of an extreme seismic event. And we will, public will know when we have the final completion date, but it should be before our next board meeting. I-15 Charleston interchange. This project is just getting started. They broke ground on August 1st. We awarded it in March to Granite Construction. We will be widening and reconstructing the Charleston Boulevard between Honolulu and Sacramento, including widening and improving the sidewalks and the lightings for the pedestrians in the neighborhood and having neighborhood-specific landscaping. We'll also be constructing auxiliary lanes in both directions between Eastern and Charleston, which will help with the weaving that you experience right there in those short weaves. So we're excited about that. The project is expected to reduce delays around the Charleston curve, reduce crashes due to the merging. Project is expected to last 460 days with anticipated completion by spring 2024. Two more projects real quick. I-15 Tropicana. You're already starting to see the construction work and the impacts of construction on the project. I'm probably going to provide throughout this project pretty frequent updates so everybody knows what's going on. The first phase includes, as I've mentioned before, the installation of 10 new automated traffic management signs, those giant gantries that go over the road and manage the lanes between Tropicana and Warm Springs. We're really looking forward to those being able to be used during construction to help manage delays as well as lane closures. That installation will require the full closure of the northbound and southbound HOV lanes of I-15 between Tropicana and Warm Springs. We also anticipate ongoing lane closures on Tropicana between Dean Martin and Polaris beginning in September this year through February of 23. The flyover will be closed for 16 months starting in January 2023. The north half of Tropicana, we're anticipating demolition of that in early 2023 through fall. So we are working, project is actively coordinating. They meet with local agencies as well as are really talking with the stakeholders in the corridor about all of the events that are coming. There's a lot of really exciting events coming during the construction of this bridge, so we're working closely, having weekly meetings to make sure that everybody's on the same page. In addition, this week we launched the new mobile app available on Apple and Android devices, where users can sign up for traffic alerts, look at restrictions in the area, check progress, and explore pictures and videos. Just search for I-15 Trop in the App Store or the Google Play Store. I wanted to thank Governor Sisolak and Board Member Stephen Esquaga and Controller Catherine Byrne, as well as RTC Washoe Executive Director Bill Thomas, and many other local leaders and stakeholders for taking the time to tour our Spaghetti Bowl project last month in Reno. The project team members were also there. You can see many of them in our vests to present the project progress. One of the tour highlights was the new graded ramp that will carry 2nd Street traffic entering south on I-580 over the Mill Street off-ramp, really improving the safety there and addressing the problems we have with the weaves. The Reno Sparks Spaghetti Bowl is the busiest interchange in northern Nevada, and the population has more than tripled since it was first built. When it was first constructed, about 90,000 vehicles traveled through the bowl daily. By 2015, there were roughly 260,000, and growth has just continued, and so we knew that we needed to address it. It's a 5-phase project anticipated to occur over 2 decades. This is just the first phase. It was approved by the board in 2019, and we are on track to complete the project 1 year ahead of the originally anticipated schedule, but on schedule with what the board approved. This will not only reduce construction inflation costs, but also help reduce the more than $1 million in societal costs we estimate due to all of the traffic crashes that have been occurring in those weeks. So we're excited. Project is on schedule to be completed later this year. And then lastly, contributions to the workforce on this board packet this month. There are 141 job years. So after this will be close to 8750. So we're excited to be able to continue to have a program that supports economic development and workers in the state of Nevada. And that concludes my report.
Thank you very much, Director. Do we have any questions of the Director on the report in Southern Nevada? Do we have any questions up north? Hearing none, seeing no raise of a hand. Let's move on to the consent agenda, which are items 4 through number 11. Do we have anyone wish to take anything separate on the consent agenda?
Governor, I'd like to talk about item number 7.
Okay. Well, then, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda items 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10, and 11? We have a motion on the floor. Any discussion? And seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay, item number 7. Agreement 398-18-067.
Yes, this agreement is an amendment to an existing agreement as we work to develop our GIS system to include all of our right-of-way information. Initially, when we went into the project, we were looking at, I gotta pull up my notes so I get the right information and don't misspeak. We were looking at primarily the boundaries and the ownership, just property lines and ownerships. But as we've gone through it, we've identified we need additional layers to include surplus properties, licenses and leases. We have many licenses and leases with adjacent property owners, maintenance stations, and rest areas. So this is an amendment to include that information into the GIS system.
Thank you, Director.
Any further questions? Go ahead.
Yes. Specifically, it's about civics and the procurement process. So was this, since it's the 4th Amendment, how was this originally procured? And did that start in 2021? Or were we dealing with this particular vendor under a different name for longer than that?
All right, for that, I'm going to need to defer either to Darren or to Craig if they have that information, but I don't know that they have that information right up front, and I will dig and see if I can find it in the packet.
Okay. What I'm concerned with is your satisfaction with the vendor. And I am interested in how long we have been working with this particular vendor on the right-of-way. So, thank you. That's it.
Thank you. So the First Amendment was due to changing their name from GCR to MB3 DDA Civics. So the First Amendment was a name change. The second was a change to the deliverables due each month. The third was a change in a correction in the attachments, and then this is the first monetary change. So there's been minor changes in the previous three just to correct and make sure that we're all on the same page with the right vendor and the right name, and then this one is the First Amendment in scope.
All right.
Thank you, Director.
Okay. Do we have a motion on this item, number 7?
Motion to approve?
We have a motion approved by item number 7. Any discussion? Hearing seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Item number 12, receive information to draft fiscal year annual work program and STIP.
Members of the board, we have Sandra Rosenberg, Assistant Director of Planning, to do a presentation on the annual work program and STIP.
Good morning, Governor, members of the board. My name is Sandra Rosenberg. I'm the Assistant Director of Planning. Oh, is it not showing yet? Can you guys see the presentation down in Southern Nevada?
We cannot.
There we go.
We're good to go.
Sorry about that. As we do annually, we are preparing our work program and statewide transportation improvement program update. We wanted to give you a brief overview before it goes to public comment period starting tomorrow. That's a 30-day public comment period. So we just wanted to give you an update on that. As a brief reminder, the One Nevada Transportation Plan was adopted in 2018 and identified 6 goal areas for our transportation network. Since that time, we have worked to implement the plan by identifying criteria and developing a prioritization process for projects, as well as a process to identify needs and refine the information from those needs into concepts and strategies and ultimately into projects that will be prioritized. For today's item, we're focused on the known projects. Those known projects were first prioritized on the data-driven criteria to support these 6 goal areas, and then they're harmonized based on other factors such as performance targets, eligibility for funding types, and geographic distribution across the state. This is the part where it gets confusing. We have a number of state and federal requirements in terms of what's in our planning documents. We try and simplify it, but in order to meet all of those requirements, we have an annual work program that's required by statute to be approved by this body. In addition, we have a 4-year statewide transportation improvement program to be approved by the federal government. The difference in there that's important is the work program, both the annual work program, which would be in this case 2023, and the short range element, the 3 years after that, that contains all of the NDOT driven projects, all of the ones we're going to deliver or have a major role in delivering. The STIP, the Statewide Transportation Program, includes all federally funded and regionally significant projects across the state. The difference being there's things in the work program such as small maintenance type projects that are not in the STIP, and the STIP contains federally funded projects that NDOT isn't responsible for delivering. So those federal funds that go directly to regional and local entities are in the STIP, but not the work program. And that's why we have these 2 different documents. You should have lists. We'll be publishing 3 different lists on the website tomorrow for public comment, which is that annual work program, the 4-year work program, and the statewide transportation improvement program. We always start with what we anticipate our funding to be across the state, and so including state and federal funding, we're anticipating approximately $968 million to be available to us across the state for federal fiscal year 2023. Those numbers do fluctuate a little bit. Some of the changes for this upcoming year is it's slightly higher because of some federal funds in the new bill that are not yet well-defined or available. We're still waiting on some guidance on some of the new programs. It's important to note that in that total amount, that includes funds that are allocated directly to the metropolitan planning organizations or other entities. And here are the numbers in front of you. So Clark, Washoe, TMPO, and Campo, primarily Clark and Washoe, do receive certain required suballocations. In addition, the Congestion Management and Air Quality Program, also known as CMAQ, that's technically a state fund, but because there's only 2 counties that are eligible for that funding, that being Washoe and Clark, we have decided to suballocate that money to them. So the numbers I'm going to get into in the next few slides do not include this approximately $100 million that is allocated federally to the local entities, and that is because NDOT is not responsible for delivering those projects. So they'll show up in the SIP, but not in the so this is the challenge we have in front of us. 80% of our state maintained system is outside of Washoe and Clark, but as you know, the majority of the population and miles driven are in those counties. So we have to do a bit of a balancing act because we do have requirements in terms of maintaining the interstate and national highway system. But we also understand that the biggest need is in those urban areas. Here's our proposed work program. This includes the 4-year list of projects that NDOT plans on delivering. The overall distribution, we did this year for the first time break out preservation versus not preservation because the majority of the work in the outside of the major metropolitan areas is in preservation. If it's not preservation, that other 17%, it's typically safety related or possibly transit. We run a rural transit program. The other thing to note is, again, not included in these is that $100 million that's directly allocated. What is included in these is certain requirements we have on some of the federal funding, including spending in areas of different population sectors, including a breakout to areas under 5,000 in population, as well as the rural transit program versus the urban transit program, which is directly allocated to those transit providers. As you may have heard, the bipartisan infrastructure law requires that 40% of the benefit of the federal funding goes to disadvantaged communities, while the federal government and NevadaDOT is working on establishing what exactly that means in terms of determination of benefit of the funding. We started out by mapping our projects and mapping out those disadvantaged communities as available from USDOT, and we found that approximately at least 54% of our projects are in disadvantaged communities, and we continue to work on making sure that's actually a benefit to those communities, and more to come on that as we work with the federal government on how to define that. And I know that was brief, but I'm happy to take any questions. This is for information only, but we're always open to suggestions and direction.
Okay, do we have any questions in Las Vegas on the presentation? Do we have any questions in Carson City?
No, Governor, we do not.
Okay. That was an information item, Fred.
Correct. It will be back next month for acceptance.
Okay, we're not having a closed session, correct?
Correct.
This is the second time set aside for public comment, right? Anyone wishing to address, not on here. Anyone, there it is, 14. Anyone wishing to address the board on any item under the jurisdiction of this board, please step forward and identify yourself for the record. Comments be limited to 3 minutes. Do we have anyone in Las Vegas for public comment? Do we have anyone in Carson City for public comment?
No, Governor.
Do we have anyone on the phone or any written public comment?
I don't, but Governor, before you adjourn, I do want to just note that Member Valentine has been here for all of the votes
Yes.
of the meeting.
I apologize. Just please let the record reflect that Virginia Commissioner Valentine has been here the entire time. Hearing none, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.